Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dami and I'm an architect in Vancouver. So today we're going to talk about 5 skills that you can start developing now to prepare for architecture school. You can start practicing these now, and they're going to help build the foundation for your journey, not just in architecture school, but on your path to becoming an architect. So when you start architecture school, there's going to be so much information thrown at you that having these basic tools under your belt, they're going to help you absorb more of that information. They might help you get a leg up on your peers, and they might also help you avoid some of those all-nighters. These are things that you can practice little by little every day until you start school. Oh, also, by the end of this video, I'm gonna teach you a little bonus trick that you can do with a Q-tip that has saved a lot of time for me when I was in school. So the first couple of items that I want to cover, it all has to do with communication skills, which is kind of essential to your success in architecture. Your education is going to be composed of architectural history, theory, building science, structure, sustainability, urban planning, and your design studio. So the design studio is where you take the culmination of all the things that you've learned and you create your own design out of it. This project is going to be your baby, a very needy baby. It's going to need feeding and nurturing. It's going to be constantly on your mind when you're in the shower or when you go to bed. And you will be responsible for turning it into something amazing. And when it sucks,
everyone is going to judge you and you will fail.
But it's also the best and most fun part of architecture school. Anyways, as you go through the design process, you're constantly going to be presenting to your peers or your instructors, whether it's during desk crits or during your final presentation. The most important thing to remember is show, don't tell. You don't want to just talk about your ideas, you actually want to show them with sketches, drawings, or renders. So the first skill I want you to practice every single day is sketching. We use digital modeling and computer renderings, but sketching is still so important for you to get your ideas out quickly and effectively. If you're not good at sketching, that's totally fine. That's what practice is for. This is something that I learned in life drawing classes. So when you're just trying to learn, don't go and try drawing the entire body, just try focusing on a small portion of it, like the feet. And so when you're at home, find an object that you find interesting and just try to draw a very small portion of it. You really don't need to be a perfect drawer or get all the perfect little details. I think what's most important is just being able to express your ideas with your sketches quickly. So personally, I like to figure out the spatial relationships and the basic massing on paper. And then I move into 3D modeling fairly quickly because it's, for me, the fastest way to iterate through a bunch of different massing options. Crucial thing to always keep in your mind is you think by doing. A lot of students miss this. You get a project brief and they spend way too much time trying to figure out the initial concept or come up with the initial partie. And when it's time to do the desk crit, they only have a few scribbles. The concept is something you develop over the span of your project, and it evolves as you go through the design process. So when you're thinking or designing, just sketch out a bunch of different iterations. You try to overlay them on trays. By the process of creating those things, you'll be able to see what works and what doesn't work, and you can eliminate from there. The Modman YouTube channel has some really great sketching tips. He also has a tutorial on rapid sketching, so you can check that out. Also, try practicing drawing some plans. You can start off by copying or tracing the plans of some of the masters and just try to think about why they shaped the building a certain way. what that does to the spaces and the movement or light conditions in those spaces, and what that means to the overall concept of the building. I would love to see your progress, so if you're drawing or sketching, follow me on Instagram and tag me. If you're struggling in the beginning of school, don't even worry. I was a late bloomer. I was terrible in school until second year. And if you're like me, you will have one project that will just ignite that fire in you. For me, it was a hydrotherapy pool. And that project really made me fall in love with architecture and the whole process behind it. So yeah, just be patient and you'll find that project too. The second thing you can start working on right now is all the digital tools. When I was in school, we didn't have a dedicated course for learning all the programs, and you were supposed to learn them on your own. So knowing how to use them right into school will give you a huge advantage. So the most common ones are AutoCAD, SketchUp, Rhino, and Revit. I would say SketchUp is probably the easiest for you to learn. And you can probably learn it in a week or two. With SketchUp, you can create whatever you want, like simple to more complex geometries, and you can render them afterwards. I'll put together a playlist of SketchUp tutorials that you can watch. And then I would say try to learn AutoCAD. That's the software where you draw all your floor plans and elevations and sections. It's an industry standard, so if you're looking to get a summer job, this and Revit will be very helpful to have. It's a bit more complicated, but learning all the functions and all the shortcuts, they're gonna help you further down the line. The third program is Rhino. Rhino is kind of like SketchUp, but you can do more things with it. If you only have time to learn one of them, I would say Rhino. You can just create more complex geometries, and I know that some architects say that the software is just an extension of your pencil, but I really think that the infinite amount of 3D modeling possibilities in Rhino has really helped me in the creative process. And it's helped me design geometries that probably would have taken me a very long time to figure out by hand or on AutoCAD. For example, this project, I wanted to create a torquing motion throughout the building, and I just started with a couple of sketch models, sketched out the plans, and I just moved straight into Rhino because I could quickly iterate through a bunch of options and geometries, and I knew it was going to take me forever to figure it out on paper. There's actually tons of really great Rhino tutorials on YouTube. You can just search Rhino tutorials and their channel will take you from step one. And then there's Revit. Revit is a industry standard. It's what you call a BIM software. So basically, to create a building, you would draw like an actual wall in the category of a wall rather than drawing two lines or a geometry that represents a wall, as you would do in AutoCAD or Rhino. Then you would put in a roof in the category of a roof. For example, if you were to model these two exact same things in Rhino, Rhino would just treat this as a geometry, but Revit understands that this is a wall and that this is a roof and this is a window. Revit's an industry standard, so it's a really great skill to have if you want to work at an architecture firm over the summer. But there are some pros and cons. The pro is that once you create the walls or roofs, the 3D model is basically just created for you, or vice versa. So once you create the 3D model, then you already have the 2D drawings, like the plan sections and elevations. So this obviously feels like a no-brainer. Like, why would you go through Rhino and then AutoCAD to prepare the drawings when you can just do it in Revit, right? So here's the con. Revit is a great tool when you start working in the industry, and definitely it creates a lot of efficiencies in the process. But I think the danger of using Revit in school is that it can kind of limit your creativity. So for example, the default wall in Revit is like a 2x4 stud wall, like going straight up. In architecture school, you want to challenge the conventional idea of what a wall is or what a building looks like. So, you have to go through extra steps to design something that has a slightly more complex geometry. And I think when the default wall or roof looks like the industry standard, then your inclination is to design boxy, very standard looking buildings. And I've seen projects change throughout the years once Revit was introduced to schools. So it's definitely something to think about. The workflow that I have used when I was doing my master's is I would do all my designs and modeling in Rhino, and then I recreated the model in Revit to create the floor plans, because I still like the way Revit creates the orthographic drawings. So Udemy has a really good, affordable Revit course for beginners. I took it, and I have a couple friends who took it. So I'll put the link below. If you use my link, you won't pay a penny more, but I'll get a little tip from the course. Also, if you can teach yourself all the Adobe suites like InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, that's also a bonus because you will definitely be using all of them in school. There's tons of tutorials you can find on YouTube or other online learning platforms. And skill number 3, understanding the basics of perspectives and composition. It helps a lot when you're doing renderings, which you will be doing a lot of. And also for photographing your model. There's some general rules that you can follow, like keeping all your lines perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical. I do post-processing on all of my images, and it can also be a fun way for you to learn programs like Photoshop or Lightroom. I mentioned briefly earlier, your courses will contain your core architectural courses and your design course. One of those architectural courses is architectural history, where you learn about the different architectural styles and the culture, religion, or politics that shaped that architecture. Learning about the architectural past, it will teach you how to think about and talk about architecture in a more meaningful and intelligible way. This stuff is really interesting when you actually spend the time to learn about it. But when you're in school and you have all these other things that you have to do, learning about the medieval churches might not be the first thing on your mind. Like, I remember having a kind of hard time focusing on this particular course. So I think this is something that you could try to learn when you have a little bit more free time now. So I've created a playlist for you on my channel where you can learn about these different styles in architecture. Some of these videos can be a little bit drab, so if you find any of them are kind of boring, just skip through them. This is a book that will probably be required reading for school, so you might as well just get it now. It covers all the different styles in a kind of chronological order. It talks about cultural influences that shape the architecture, but it is kind of dense. Maybe reading one section a day could help you get a little bit more into it. So in the first year of architecture school, I was so invested in my studio project that I spent like all my time into it. And a lot of my other core courses, they kind of suffered, and I did a lot of all-nighters. I mean, I can't really stop you from doing them. If you gotta do it, you gotta do it. Yeah, it can be kind of tricky to avoid all-nighters because you might have a new idea like 5 days before your deadline, or your prof tells you to change something and you're like, oh, fuck, I have to do it all over again. And so what I would say about this is that try to do a lot of work in the front end. Don't wait until a couple weeks into the deadline to make some big decisions in your design. Do as many iterations as possible and just throw out all your bad ideas. And the more developed your idea is, it's gonna be easier for you to sell it to your professors during your crit. You're gonna be more convinced of your own ideas as well. I think a lot of students fall into the trap of like trying to find the best idea, but what's more interesting is the process and the story behind the idea. During my thesis, we would have the hand-in deadline for your work, where you submit all your materials. And between that time and the presentation, that was about a week. And during that time, you could figure out your presentation and how you could tell the story behind your project. I really like that approach because everyone had very polished presentations. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter how amazing your project is if you can't convince your client that's an amazing idea. So all that is to say, start learning time management. Learn how to manage yourself and keep this constantly in the back of your mind as you're going through your daily life and as you go through architecture school. This is also connected to mental health. Mental health is the core of everything. School is just a stepping stone for you to get to the end goal, which is to become a professional who's gonna contribute to the betterment of society. And you can't have a positive influence on other people or become a mentor to them if you're not healthy in here. And mental health is it's just like physical health. It's something that you have to practice every single day. Otherwise, you'll get burnt out. I've seen so many architects quit and complain about their work. So start getting in the habit of taking a little bit of time for yourself, preferably doing something that's off the screen. Maybe it's a little bit of meditation, a quick cardio or yoga. Take some time to think about what you're doing instead of just going through the motions. This reflection can actually help you with your workflow as well. I think stepping back to think about your struggles and inefficiencies can be a really good thing to incorporate into your daily lifestyle. So with all that being said, I promised I would show one last trick that has helped me in school. And it's a simple trick that you can do with a Q-tip. Cut the Q-tip about in half. Just try to take the cotton part out of it. And you do that with the other one as well. Just cut it up. And do this. And so now you have two of these. Now what you can do is
I think you have a problem. Like, you have to do a course to learn how to be funny. Oh, that's also creepy. Okay, you don't have to do it for real. I think we got it. We got it.
But
Thank you.
Just like,
okay.
I can't do it with my eyes. My eyes are too Asian.
All right. Thanks.
You don't think that's funny?
Yeah, it's super funny. We got the idea. Thank you. Very entertaining.
Okay, well, that was a fail.
Okay, can we just see the real thing now?
Okay, so this is a real trick. It's something that you can do while you're making your model. You know, when you're putting together your model, usually you're pretty tight on time and you want to try to make it as fast as possible. And sometimes if you're doing like sketch models, you want to do that even faster. And a lot of times when you're waiting for the glue to dry, it can take quite a bit of time. So I like to use a Q-tip and
put it on the model, and that instantly kind of makes the glue a little bit dry on the cardboard or on that material. And so when you stick it on, it kind of just stays on automatically, and you don't really have to wait for it to dry. Yeah, so that's it. That's the little trick. Hope you guys found that helpful.